Welcome to the Onfinity training session. Today we will be exploring the request for quotation to purchase order process. It is a critical transaction flow that ensure efficient and transparent procurement within the organizations. Let's begin by reviewing our agenda. We will work through request for quotation to purchase order process step by step, understand its business relevance, and explore the key components that make this process successful within the Onfinity system. The objective of this session is to enable you to understand the RFQ to purchase order process and its associated terms in the context of business processes. Also enables you to test the RFQ to purchase order process in the context of business requirements. Before we dive into the process, let's ensure the prerequisites are in place. We will need to access the Onfinity platform with a valid user ID and password. Onfinity basic setup and master data setup configurations must be completed and available to bring request for quotation to purchase order process to life. Let's look at a practical use case. Sonic Venture, preparing to onboard a large group of new employees, identifies the need to procure smartphones and laptops to ensure a competitive and transparent procurement process. The Sonic Ventures initiates a request for quotation RFQ using predefined RFQ topic for IT hardware procurement. The procurement team targets relevant vendors and send out invitation via standardized mail template. The RFQ document includes detailed specifications, for example, RAM storage, brand preferences, quantity required. For example, 50 Dell laptops, 25 Samsung Galaxy S22, 25 Redmi Note 10, and 50 Logitech mouse. Next, we have the request for quotation, RFQ, to purchase order process flowchart, which provides a high-level overview of the procurement process. The process begins with the creation and publication of the RFQ, which is then followed by the submission of quotations from vendors. Once the vendor responses are received, they are entered into the vendor response screen. From there, the ranking process is executed to evaluate and compare the quotations. After completing the ranking, the system identifies the winning vendor. Based on the selected vendor, a purchase order, PO, is generated. This is followed by the receipt of goods, which is recorded through the Goods Receipt Note, GRN, screen. Finally, the process concludes with the generation of the accounts payable, AP, invoice, which is used for payment processing. Now, let's know the basic masters involved to record a request for quotation to purchase order process. Here are some basic masters which must be available in the system: vendor, product or charge, attribute set instance, unit of measure, currency price list, payment term, and payment method. All of these topics are already covered in their respective training sessions. If you want to learn how to configure them, you can watch the detailed sessions on each topic. In addition to the basic, we have some more procurement-specific master involved for this process to record a request for quotation to purchase order. To record a request for quotation to purchase order process, here are some procurement-specific masters which must be available in the system. RFQ topic, mail template. Now we have the request for quotation, RFQ process. Before we begin, let's first understand what a request for quotation is. A request for quotation, commonly referred to as RFQ in Onfinity, is a business process in which a company requests a quote from a supplier's or vendor for the purchase of a specific product or service. And typical RFQ involves more than the price per product or service, such as payment term, product specification and detail, etc. Let's now explore the RFQ topic, which is an essential part of the RFQ process. The RFQ topic is a structured element within the RFQ process used to manage and organize the list of potential vendors and supplier who may be invited to participate in the specific RFQs. Next, let's understand the mail template. The mail template in the RFQ process serves as a centralized communication tool used to send formal invitations, mails to the vendors. Now that we have understood the foundational structure of the RFQ to purchase order process, let's dive into the Onfinity system and walk through each step of the process in detail. To begin, open the Onfinity URL in your web browser. Enter your user ID and password, then click on the Login button to access the system. Once you log in to the Onfinity system, you'll land on the homepage where you can see all the available widgets, known as mosaics in Onfinity. These mosaics can be useful for your analysis or business insights and can be adjusted according to your needs. We won't go into much detail here, as this will be covered in the specific training session related to that particular mosaic. For now, proceed by clicking on the menu utility. From the menu utility, you can either directly search for the Request for Quotation screen or navigate through the following path. Go to Procurement Management, then click on the Request for Quotation module, under which you will find the Request for Quotation screen. Click on Request for Quotation to open the RFQ screen. If any records are available, they will be displayed in the grid view. To open a record in the single record view, simply click on the document number hyperlink. You can return to the grid view at any time by clicking the back button. To add a new record, click on the New Record button. This will open the screen in single record view. On the left side, you will find the header panel of the RFQ screen, which provides a summary of key information across all tabs, offering quick visibility into important details. The panel includes fields such as RFQ name, document number, RFQ type, response date, currency, total RFQ amount. It also contains the Document Action button, which allows users to control the document status, such as completing the transaction record. So here you just need to select the organization in which you are creating the particular record of the RFQ. Let's begin by selecting the organization under which the RFQ record is to be created. Next, select the document type as Request for Quotation. This document type is available from the basic configuration of the tenant setup and is system-generated. It defines the behavior of the transaction. Next, we have the Response Date field. This field represents the deadline for vendor responses to the RFQ. Any quotations submitted after this date will not be considered during the ranking process. For example, if we set the response date to 30th June 2025, any vendor quotes received after this date will be excluded from evaluation. Next, we have the Name field. In this field, we need to provide a clear and descriptive name that reflects the purpose of the RFQ. For example, we'll enter IT Hardware RFQ, June, which indicates that this RFQ is specifically created for procuring IT hardware during the month of June. Next, we have the RFQ type. There are 3 RFQ types available. Let's begin with Quote All Lines. Quote All Lines. RFQ type is used when the vendor is required to provide prices for all the product or service lines listed in the RFQ. It is mandatory that each line item in the vendor's response contains a valid price. If any line item is missing a price, the system will not allow the response to be processed or ranked. This ensures that vendor quotations are complete and can be fairly evaluated during the ranking process. The next type is Quote Selected Lines. This type provides flexibility to the vendors, allowing them to quote only for the products or services they have available. If a vendor does not supply certain items listed in the RFQ, they are allowed to submit pricing only for the items they can offer. In this case, the RFQ can result in multiple winning vendors, each selected based on the specific line items they have quoted for. This approach is useful when sourcing from multiple vendors to fulfill a single requirement. Next, we have the RFQ type, Quote Total Only. In the Quote Total Only type, vendors are not required to provide line-wise pricing. Instead, they submit a lump sum amount at the header level of the response. This approach is ideal when a consolidated price is preferred over itemized costing, for example, in cases of service packages or bundled purchases. In both Quote Total Only and Quote All Lines types, the system will select only one winning vendor based on the prices. Let's compare the two. Quote Total Only. The vendor provides a single total amount for the entire RFQ without detailing individual product or service prices. Quote All Lines requires the vendor to quote prices for every item or service listed in the RFQ. If any line item is left unquoted, that response will be disqualified from the ranking process. For this session, we will proceed with the Quote All Lines option. Next, we have the RFQ topic, The RFQ topic is used to send invitations to vendors who are linked to a specific topic. It acts as a grouping mechanism to manage which vendors receive the RFQ. Let's select an existing topic that we've already configured. For example, IT hardware vendor list. To view or edit this topic, click on the three-dot icon on the right side of the RFQ topic field and then select Zoom. This will take you to the RFQ topic screen. Click on the topic name hyperlink to open the record in single record view. Alternatively, you can access the RFQ topic screen directly by navigating to Procurement Management, Request for Quotation module, RFQ, Tender topic. To create a new RFQ topic record, simply click on New Record. By clicking on New Record, the system will open the RFQ topic screen in single record view. Start by selecting the organization for which you're creating the RFQ topic. Next, enter a name for identification purposes. This name should clearly represent the purpose or scope of the topic. After that, you'll find the Related To field. This field defines where this topic will be applicable. There are two available options: RFQ, Tender. This makes the RFQ topic screen a centralized place for managing topics, whether they are used in an RFQ or a tender. If you select RFQ, this topic will be available and visible on RFQ screens. If you select Tender, the topic will only be available on the tender screen. In our case, since this topic is selected as RFQ, it is available and selectable on the RFQ screen. You'll also notice a mail template linked to this topic. This is a mandatory field and defines the default email format that will be used when sending invitations to vendors associated with this topic. Let's navigate back to the RFQ screen. Although a mail template can be defined within the RFQ topic, the RFQ screen also provides an option to override that with a different mail template if required. This gives users more flexibility at the document level. What is the purpose of the mail template field on the RFQ screen? The mail template field on the RFQ screen is used to define a specific email format for sending RFQ invitations to vendors. If you want to use a particular template that's different from the one defined in the RFQ topic, you can select it directly here. Otherwise, the system will automatically use the one from the linked RFQ topic. This allows users to customize communication per RFQ based on the nature of the request or the audience it is being sent to. Now, moving back to the RFQ topic screen, before we proceed with the remaining configuration of the RFQ topic, one important question arises. How do we create an RFQ mail template? Let's take a moment to understand and complete this as well. To begin, zoom the mail template field. Click on the mail template name hyperlink. This will open the mail template screen in single record view. Here's what you need to do. Select the organization for which this mail template is being created. Enter the name of the template for easy identification. This name should reflect the purpose or context of the template, such as mail template for RFQ. After providing the name for the mail template, the next step is to define the subject of the mail. Once the subject is entered, you can begin writing the email content. In our example, we've written, "This mail is sent to inform you about the release of the latest RFQ." Within the content, we've used 3 different fields columns that will automatically pull values from the RFQ screen's database. To include dynamic values from the system, use the standardized format. Start with @, followed by the column name, close with another @. This syntax ensures the system fetches and inserts real-time data from the specified RFQ column when the mail is sent. For example, a document NOA will automatically be replaced with the actual RFQ document number. After completing the content with the appropriate placeholders, save the record to finalize your mail template. That concludes the basic configuration of the mail template. Now let us move back to the RFQ topic screen. After saving the RFQ topic header, proceed to the Vendor tab by clicking on the Vendor tab button. This is where you can link vendors to the topic. Click on the vendor name hyperlink to open record in single record view. To add a vendor, click on Add Record. The tender topic field will auto-populate based on the header. Then, select the vendor, followed by the contact and location. The contact is essential as the system uses this information to send RFQ invitation emails. If a vendor does not have a contact associated, the email will not be sent to that vendor. Next, we have another important feature, the Restriction tab. This tab allows you to restrict specific vendors from quoting on certain products or product categories. If you want to restrict a vendor from submitting a quote for a particular product, simply navigate to the Restriction tab by clicking the Restriction tab button. Here, you just need to click on New Record to define a restriction. After clicking on New Record, you can choose to restrict either by product category or individual product. For now, undo the changes. We already have one configured item here, so this black gel pen would be restricted. If the RFQ includes this particular product, then Wayne Enterprise will not be able to quote against this product. This helps ensure that vendors only respond to items that are relevant or permitted for them. So, this is all about the RFQ topic. That is how you can link the vendors and create a standard topic or RFQ topic. Let us now move back to the request for quotation screen from here. Next, we have the mail template field. We have already discussed the purpose of the mail template. If we want to give it priority and define a specific email structure for this particular RFQ, we can link the mail template here directly. Next is the description field. This field allows us to add any additional notes or remarks related to the RFQ. It is optional and has no functional impact, so we can leave it blank if not needed. Then we have the representative field. This field indicates the person responsible for creating the RFQ. By default, it populates with the logged-in user's name, provided that the user is also configured as a representative in the system. Here, the representative is showing as Sonic Admin because we are currently logged in with the Sonic Admin user. You can change this to any other available user in the system, depending on your requirements. Next, we have the currency field. This indicates the currency in which you are conducting this particular request for quotation, RFQ. It defines how prices and totals will be calculated and displayed throughout the process. You can change the currency by clicking on the currency field. Once selected, the total amount will automatically be updated based on the line tab details provided in the RFQ. Next, you will see two check button options that can be used based on your requirements. Quote, all quantities. Enable this option if you want to restrict the vendor's quotation by requiring them to respond with the full quantity for each item. Quote, total amount. Enable this option if you want to allow the vendor to enter a total lump sum amount for the quote all lines type after the header is saved. Once the header information is saved, the record is ready for adding line tab details. On the RFQ screen, you will find the line tab button, which allows you to directly navigate to the line tab. Alternatively, you can add lines from the composite view as well. You will also see an action button offering multiple options. Create line from requisition. Clicking this button will open the Create line from requisition info page. This is used in scenarios where an RFQ is created based on an existing requisition. We will explore this process in detail in a separate session. Copy lines. This button allows you to copy product lines from an existing RFQ record. After clicking it, an info page will appear where you can enter the RFQ number from which you want to copy the lines. Since we are not copying lines at this point, we will close this window. Additionally, if you want to generate a sales order for the items where the offered quantity is marked as true, you can do that from Create SO button. To proceed, you will need to enter the customer details in the additional section, including customer, location, contact. Once this information is provided and the lines are added under the Line tab, the system will allow you to create a corresponding sales order. On this screen, you will also find a few additional informational fields: work start date and work complete date. These fields indicate the expected start and completion dates of the RFQ process. Delivery date. This shows the expected delivery date for the goods or services once the quotation process is completed. Margin for sales. This allows you to define a margin percentage if the RFQ is linked to a sales flow. Invite vendors only. Enabling this checkbox ensures that only the vendors explicitly invited through the RFQ topic can submit quotations. If unchecked, other vendor subscribers, not listed under the topic, may also quote. We will explore this invite vendors only feature further in the upcoming steps. But for now, let's proceed with inserting product or service lines into the RFQ. To do this, we will navigate to the Line tab. To add a new product line in the RFQ, click on the New Record option in the Line tab to create a new line item. Enter the product name in the product field. For our example, we'll use the product Dell. Select it from the drop-down list. Next, you have the Attribute Set Instance field. This allows you to specify product configuration details such as RAM, storage, etc., which come from the predefined attribute group configuration. Click on the Attribute Set Instance option to open the attribute selection form. If there are existing attribute combinations already defined in the system, you can select one of those. You can also enable the checkboxes Show All and Include zero and negative quantity if you want to view attribute combinations that have zero or negative stock. For now, since no matching attribute set instance is available, we will create a new instance. Select the values from the available attribute fields. For example, RAM 12 GB, storage 512 GB. After selecting the required values, click OK to confirm your attribute selection and proceed. You can also use the charge field when adding a line item that represents a non-product cost, such as an extended warranty or installation charges. Note: you can only select either a product or a charge on a single line. If a charge is selected, the product field will automatically become red only, and vice versa. This ensures that each line clearly represents either a product or a charge, not both. Here we have some informational fields that can be optionally used to provide line-specific details. Description: to add any additional notes or instructions related to the line item. Work start and work complete, used to specify the expected start and end dates for the procurement or delivery process of that line item. Delivery days indicates the total number of days expected for delivery. These fields are for informational purposes only and do not affect the core RFQ functionality. However, in our current case, we don't need to fill in these fields. So for now, let's go ahead and save the record by clicking on the Save button. After saving the product line, the next step is to enter the required quantities. You can do this by navigating to the Quantity tab and click on New Record and enter the quantity in the Quantity field. For example, in our case, we'll enter 50 units. Next, we need to provide the benchmark price. This is the expected price per unit for the product. Let's assume we're expecting a price of $60,000. Once both the quantity and benchmark price are entered, the line amount will automatically update based on the multiplication of quantity and price. This updated line amount will also reflect the Line tab once the Quantity tab record is saved. If you intend to create a purchase order from this RFQ line, mark Purchase Quantity Check button as true. If this product line is to be used for creating a sales order, mark Offer Quantity Check button as true. After that, go to the Additional section and specify the customer, location, and user contact details. Then, click on the Sales Order button available in the RFQ header to proceed. Here, important note is sales order can only be created if the RFQ is still in drafted status. Now let's save the record on the Quantity tab. Let's proceed to add another product line for Samsung Galaxy S22. Click on New Record in the Line tab. In the Product field, select Samsung Galaxy S22 from the product list. Next, move to the Attribute Set Instance field. For this product, we already have one existing attribute records available. Let's use this existing attribute combination records. Simply select the appropriate record and proceed. Once the attribute is selected, you're ready to proceed with entering the quantity and benchmark price, just like we did for the previous product. First, make sure to save the line record by clicking the Save button on the Line tab. This ensures the product line, Samsung Galaxy S22, and selected attribute instance are stored before proceeding further. Now, navigate to the Quantity tab in Composite View and follow these steps. Click on New Record. This will display a quantity entry line where you can input the quantity, benchmark price, and other relevant details. You're now ready to enter the specific purchase quantity or offer quantity, just like we did earlier for the Dell product. Alternatively, you can also access the Quantity tab. Simply double-click on the RFQ line hyperlink, which will directly open the related Quantity tab for more detailed editing or review. You can again click on the RFQ line hyperlink to open the single record view of Quantity tab. Now, Let's proceed with entering the quantity details for the Samsung Galaxy S22 in the Quantity tab. Enter the quantity as 25. It's generally recommended to use the composite view for this step, as it provides better visibility and ease of use. Set the benchmark price. For now, let's assume it to be Rs 30,000. Mark purchase quantity as true, since this product is intended for procurement. Once vendor responses are submitted and the ranking process is executed, you'll also be able to view the best response price here. After saving the quantity line, click on the back button to return to the line tab. Now let's add a new product, Redmi Note 10. Select the product from the product field. Next, choose the appropriate attribute by selecting from the existing attribute combinations. Click OK, then save the line record. Once the line is saved, navigate to the quantity and click New Record. Enter the quantity as 25. Set the benchmark price. For now, let's assume it to be Rs 15,000. Mark the purchase quantity checkbox as true, since we intend to include this product in the purchase process. After saving the previous entry, let's add a new record for our final product, Logitech Mouse. Click on the New Record button on the Line tab. In the product field, select Logitech Mouse from the available list. This particular product does not have any attribute set instance associated with it, so there's no need to select any attribute here. Once the product is selected, save the line by clicking on the Save button. Now, navigate to the Quantity tab within the composite view of the line. Click on New Record in the Quantity tab to enter the quantity details. Enter quantity as 50. Set the benchmark price to 1500. Mark the purchase quantity checkbox as true since this product will be part of the purchase process. Save the quantity record. Once all the line items and quantities are entered and saved, navigate back to the Header tab of the RFQ screen. In the left, you will see a Document Action button. Click on the Complete Document Action. Confirm the action by clicking OK. Your RFQ document will now be marked as completed. After the document is completed, you will notice additional actions are now available, including Create Purchase Order, to initiate a PO based on selected vendor responses. Publish RFQ, to send the RFQ details to the linked vendors. Rank RFQ, to evaluate vendor responses and determine the best option based on price or other parameters. You can only use the Create Purchase Order option after ranking, and rank RFQ only after publishing and completing the record on the vendor response screen for the RFQ and processing the vendor response. You can also see that the Create SO, Copy Lines, and Create Lines from Requisition buttons also become read-only, as we restrict the creation of sales order after the RFQ is completed and processed. Similarly, the other options cannot be used to add lines once the record is already processed. So for now, let us publish the record by clicking on the Publish RFQ button. Here you will find the option to send the invitation. By marking this, you will be able to send the mail to the vendor. Before proceeding with this step, please ensure that the email configuration is properly set up on your tenant. This setup is essential to enable the system to send emails, including RFQ invitations, to the vendors. If you're unsure how to configure the email settings, a dedicated training session is available. It provides step-by-step guidance on how to reset and configure the email setup on the tenant, ensuring smooth communication from the system. Once the setup is confirmed and you proceed by clicking OK, the system will display a confirmation message stating that RFQ invitations have been successfully sent to the selected vendors. After the invitations are sent, the RFQ record will be reflected on the vendor response screen, where vendors will be able to view and respond to your request. Once you start receiving responses from the vendors, including their quoted prices, you will need to enter these details manually into the vendor response screen to proceed with the next steps in the procurement process. To open the vendor response screen, navigate to the Procurement Management section, and then go to the Request for Quotation, RFQ module, where you'll find the vendor response. Simply click on Vendor Response to open the screen. Then, click on the hyperlink of the relevant record to open it in Single Record View, where you'll have access to all available options for reviewing and entering vendor responses. Next, move to the Response Line tab. Please note that this tab is automatically populated through System Processes. You do not need to add any records manually. You are only required to enter the prices received from vendors and then run the ranking process. The list of vendors shown here is sourced exclusively from the RFQ topic, based on the vendors linked during topic configuration. To review individual vendor responses, navigate to the Response tab by clicking the Response tab button. You will see a list of vendors, business partners, associated with this RFQ. Click on the vendor name hyperlink to open the single record view of the selected response. In this detailed view, you'll find all relevant information such as RFQ name, vendor location. You will also see the currency, which indicates the currency in which you are dealing with this vendor for the RFQ. The prices will be updated automatically once you enter the values in the corresponding product response lines. However, in case the quote total only RFQ type is used, you will need to enter the total price directly in this tab, regardless of whether prices have been specified at the line level. You will also find a ranking field, which gets updated after the ranking process is executed from the RFQ screen. Additionally, you can enter the response date, the date on which the vendor has provided their quotation. The work start and work complete fields will reflect the values defined in the RFQ, if available. However, you may update them here based on the vendor's actual proposed timelines. The delivery days field can also be filled in to indicate expected delivery time, though it is for informational purposes only. You may also use the description field to enter any additional comments or notes related to the vendor's response. At the end of the process, you also have the option to manually select the winning vendor if required. The winner checkbox can either be manually selected, or it will automatically be marked true by the system when the ranking process identifies the vendor with the minimum price. Once you've verified the vendor details and entered the necessary information, navigate to the response lines by clicking on the Response Lines tab. Select the relevant product line from the Response Line tab and open it in single record view by clicking on the RFQ line hyperlink. In this view, you'll need to enter the quoted price provided by the vendor for that specific product under the Response Quantity section, Composite View. For example, if the vendor has quoted $55,000 for the Dell product, enter this amount in the Response Quantity line. Once you've entered the quoted amount, save the Response Quantity record, and then move on to the next product line under the Response Line tab to repeat the process. Next, select the Samsung Galaxy S22 product line and enter the vendor's quoted price, $28,000, which is below our benchmark price. Save the response quantity record after entering the price. Then move to the next product, Redmi Note 10, and input the quoted price as $14,000. Again, save the record once the price is entered. Finally, for the Logitech mouse, enter the quoted price as $1,500, which matches our benchmark price. After entering the value, save the response quantity line. You can directly navigate to the response quantity by clicking on the Response Quantity tab button. From there, open the specific record in single record view by clicking on the RFQ response line hyperlink. At this level, you'll also notice that the ranking for each individual product line will be visible once the ranking process has been executed. For now, let's return to the Response tab. We have completed entering the prices for the first vendor. Now we need to proceed with entering the responses for the next vendor. Before proceeding further, make sure that after entering all the prices for a vendor, you click on the Check and Complete button. This action is mandatory for the vendor's response to be included in the ranking process. Once Check and Complete is clicked, all fields become read-only, preventing further edits except the selected Winner Check button. The Winner Check button remains available for selection. You may select a vendor as the winner manually, especially if your decision is based on additional factors beyond just the quoted price, such as delivery timelines, transportation costs, or product quality. Now let's quickly enter the prices for the next vendor. Starting with Dell, we'll enter $61,000. That's slightly above our benchmark. Go ahead and save the response quantity. Next, for Samsung Galaxy S22, enter $27,500 and save. For the Redmi Note 10, the vendor has quoted $16,000. Save this as well. And finally, for the Logitech mouse, enter the price as $1650, then save. So now, We've successfully added all the product prices for this vendor. Let's now move to the Response tab for this vendor and click on Check and Complete. Once that's done, we'll continue with our last vendor. We need to enter the pricing details for them as well. Now, as we mentioned earlier, in the case of quote total only, you can directly enter the total price at the header level instead of item-wise. This is an important point to remember, which is why we're highlighting it again here. Based on this input, you'll be able to run the ranking process. For now, let's head over to the Response Line tab and select the products one by one. Starting with Dell, this vendor is offering at $54,500. Go ahead and save. Next, for Samsung Galaxy S22, the price is $29,000. Save that as well. Now they are offering the Redmi Note 10 at just $11,000. Quite competitive. Let's save it. And finally, the Logitech mouse is quoted at $1,150. Same as the previous vendor. Save the record. That completes the pricing for our last vendor. After entering all the prices, let's once again move to the Response tab for this vendor. Here, we simply need to click on Check and Complete. This finalizes the response and makes it ready for ranking. Now, to get a better view of all vendor responses together, click on the Grid Toggle button or the Back button to return to the grid view. In this view, you'll see the prices submitted by different vendors, making it easier to compare and analyze. With that done, our next step is to go back to the main Request for Quotation (RFQ) screen. Now, back on the Request for Quotation (RFQ) screen, simply click on the Rank RFQ button. Once you do this, the system will automatically process and rank the vendor responses. At the bottom of the RFQ screen, you'll notice a label or indicator. 3. Confirming that ranking has been successfully completed for all 3 vendors. Next, let's head over to the vendor response screen again. Navigate to the header section, and here, you'll see that one vendor has been selected as the winner. In this case, the vendor offering the lowest price, Wayne Enterprise, has been automatically marked as the winner. Now, to create the purchase order, let's navigate back to the RFQ screen. Once there, click on the Action button, and from the drop-down, select Create Purchase Order. You'll receive a confirmation message. Simply click OK. Next, you'll be prompted to select the document type. Choose Purchase Order and confirm again by clicking OK. Once the process completes, your purchase order number will be displayed at the bottom of the screen, confirming that the order has been successfully created. Make sure to copy this document number. You'll need it to locate the purchase order in the next step. Now let's open the purchase order screen. You can either search for purchase order using the menu utility, or directly navigate to the purchase order module under Procurement Management. Click on Purchase Order, and you'll be taken to the landing page. Here, you'll see various mosaics. These allow you to filter records quickly based on their available value. You'll also notice charts showing monthly purchase order trends, giving you a snapshot of how many orders were placed in a month period. Top 10 Purchase Order Value chart displays the highest value orders, grouped by vendor. This gives you a quick overview of which vendors you're spending the most with. Next to it, the Top Category by Spend Purchase chart helps you identify which product categories have the highest purchase values. Very useful for analyzing procurement trends. Now, let's talk about the due orders and expected orders mosaics. Both serve similar purposes, but with a slight difference. Due orders show purchase orders where the promised date has already passed, but the goods have not yet been fully received. These are overdue and require follow-up. Expected orders, on the other hand, show orders scheduled for delivery today or in the future, based on the promised date available on purchase order. Both views are useful for tracking the receiving status of your orders and can be used to generate goods receipt notes, GRNs, directly from here. One important point to remember: only completed purchase orders will appear in these mosaics. Alright, now on this purchase order landing page, you'll notice several filter mosaics available to help you quickly find specific records. These include Advanced Filter, Warehouse, Vendor, Document Status. Each mosaic works as a shortcut filter. Simply click on the hyperlink within a mosaic to instantly view records matching that particular value. For example, clicking on a vendor name will show only purchase orders related to that vendor. Also note, The data within these mosaics will only appear once there is relevant information available in the system, meaning once different values are entered in those corresponding fields, they will begin to show up here as clickable options. This makes it easier to navigate and analyze purchase orders based on specific warehouses, vendors, or status, without having to manually search through all records. Now, there is one more mosaic you'll see here called Generate PO from SO. This mosaic is used to open the form that allows generation of purchase orders directly from sales orders. However, since that feature will be covered in a separate session, we won't go into detail about it right now. Next, you have a few more options to interact with the records. You can view existing records using the View Records option. If you wish to create a new purchase order, you can do that by clicking the New Record option available on the mosaic. Alternatively, you can move directly to the record screen by clicking on the Screen Record option. These options give you flexibility to either start fresh or manage existing purchase orders efficiently. So, here you'll find your specific purchase order listed in the results. Simply click on the document number hyperlink to open the purchase order. This will take you into the single record view. Before proceeding further, let's take a moment to understand what a purchase order is. A purchase order, PO, is a formal document issued by a buyer to a supplier, specifying the details of the goods or services to be provided. It includes information such as product descriptions, quantities, prices, and delivery terms. A purchase order serves as a legal agreement between both parties and plays a critical role in managing procurement, ensuring transparency, and maintaining control over organizational spending. Now let's talk about the available fields on this screen. Here, you'll notice that most of the information is automatically populated from the Request for Quotation, RFQ. You'll see details such as the vendor and their associated information, the order date, which reflects the date the order was created, the promised date, indicating the expected delivery date of the items. All of these values come directly from the RFQ process when the purchase order is generated. In the product section, the items listed are the ones selected during the RFQ, and the prices are automatically picked from the winner vendor's quotation. This is essentially how a purchase order is created based on a completed request for quotation. We'll go over each field on this screen in more detail, including their purpose and usage, in our next session. For now, to finalize this purchase order, simply click on the Document Action button in the header panel. Choose the Complete option and confirm by clicking OK. Your purchase order will then be processed and marked as completed. Here, you can also review the payment schedule. This section gets automatically updated based on the payment terms assigned to the vendor. In our case, the vendor had an immediate payment term, which is why it's reflected here. These values are pulled directly from the vendor master data. One important note to highlight: to successfully create a purchase order for the selected winner, the vendor must have a valid payment term, payment method, and an assigned price list. These must be configured in the vendor profile beforehand for the system to process the order smoothly. If you want to check the vendor details, you can zoom directly from the vendor field. Clicking on the vendor's name hyperlink will open the vendor screen in single record view. Here, you'll be able to see all relevant details for the vendor, such as the price list assigned, the payment terms, in our case defined as immediate, and the payment method linked to this vendor. All these vendor details are utilized while processing the purchase for the vendor screen. Now, let's navigate back to the purchase order screen. Here, you'll notice the Expected Landed Cost tab button. This is used to define the landed cost, if any additional cost is involved, such as freight, insurance, or handling. We won't go into detail here, as this topic will be covered separately in the upcoming Purchase Order with Expected Landed Cost session. Next, the Order Tax tab button will take you to the Order Tax tab of the purchase order. This shows a clear breakdown of the overall tax calculation, including the total taxable amount and the tax value applied. Now let's head back to the header section. Here, if you observe, the default tax is shown as VAT 0%. This tax is applied automatically through the system process, but can also be changed manually. If you're interested in understanding how default tax gets determined on transactions, There's a dedicated session on tax management available for a detailed explanation. Once the purchase order, PO, is completed, it is shared with the vendor. Upon receiving the items, the next step is to proceed with the goods receipt note, GRN process, to update the stock in the warehouse. So for now, let's move to the purchase order landing page to create the goods receipt note, GRN, using the available mosaic option. However, you can also choose to navigate directly to the goods receipt note screen to create a GRN manually for this particular purchase order. Both methods allow you to generate the GRN, and we'll explore them in the next sessions. We need to refresh the mosaic. Click on Mosaic section now. Just by clicking on the refresh option, we would able to see our record get updated here. Before we proceed further, let's take a moment to understand what a GRN, or goods receipt note, actually is. A goods receipt note is a formal document used to acknowledge the receipt of goods from a supplier. It acts as proof of delivery and helps the buyer verify that the items received match the quantity and quality mentioned in the original purchase order. So now, let's proceed to create the goods receipt note, GRN. We can do this directly from the expected orders mosaic, where you'll see your purchase order record listed. Click on the document number to open product line, then simply select the line item. Once the line is selected, the Generate GRN button will become active. Click on it. You will be taken directly to the GRN screen, where the GRN gets created automatically based on the information available in the purchase order. This is one of the simplest and most efficient ways to create a GRN. Click on the GRN number hyperlink to open the record in single record view, where you can review all the details related to the goods receipt note. Alternatively, you can create a GRN manually. Select the organization, choose the document type, set the movement date, and select the appropriate warehouse where the received items are to be stored. After selecting the warehouse, the next step is to select the vendor. Based on the selected vendor, all related details will be automatically updated on the screen. Then, choose the locator, which indicates the specific location within the warehouse where the stock will be updated once the GRN is completed. Now, click on the Create Lines From option. In the form that opens, select your purchase order, enter the order number, and the locator will auto-fill based on the header details. You just need to select the line as to bring into the GRN. Since we've already used this line earlier, it's appearing as selected. If you're receiving a partial quantity, you can manually update the quantities in this form before proceeding. For now, simply close the form to return to the GRN screen. In case of partial quantity receipt, you can also manually adjust the quantity directly on the Lines tab. To do this, simply click on the quantity field and update it as needed. Let's now move to the Lines tab. Click on Hyperlink to open the record in single record view. Here, you'll find detailed information specific to this particular product line. Let's now navigate to the Header tab by clicking on the Home option. Here, you'll find the Create Lines from Cart button. This option allows you to create GRN lines using the cart functionality, which is already covered in detail in the Inventory Count Form training under the Material Management module. If you are using carts, this button provides a convenient way to populate lines. For now, we'll focus on completing the GRN. Simply click on the Complete button to process the record. In this session, we've covered only the essential fields required for this specific scenario. All remaining fields will be explained in detail in upcoming session. Now, after completing the goods receipt note, GRN record, the user can directly generate the AP invoice using the Generate Invoice option, which becomes enabled only after the GRN is completed. An AP invoice, or accounts payable invoice, refers to a vendor's bill that is used to process payments, typically created after the goods have been received and recorded in the system. To proceed, simply click on Generate Invoice to process and create the corresponding AP invoice. Confirm the process by clicking OK. You'll then need to provide the invoice reference number as received from the vendor. For example, let's assume the reference number is AP 100005 for this particular invoice. Next, select the appropriate document type for the invoice. If there are any additional charges, such as warranty or freight, included in the purchase order that you'd like to carry over into the AP invoice, you can do so by enabling the Include Charges option. Simply mark it as true. However, since no such charges are linked to the current purchase order, we can skip this step. Now click OK to proceed. Once the process is completed, the invoice number will appear at the bottom of the screen, confirming that the invoice has been successfully generated. Now let's open the AP invoice screen. You can either search for it directly using the menu search utility, or navigate through the financial management section. Under the Accounts Payable module, you will find the AP invoice screen. Clicking on AP invoice will take you to the AP invoice landing page, where you'll see various mosaics. These mosaics act as visual filters, displaying real-time data related to vendor invoices. We won't go into much detail here, as this topic will be covered in a dedicated training session on AP invoices. For now, we'll just take a quick look, since AP invoices are primarily used by the finance team. To locate the invoice we just generated, click on the Screen Record option. Here, you'll see the record we just created. Click on the invoice number hyperlink to open the record in single record view, allowing you to view more detailed information. So, as you've seen, just by clicking Generate Invoice from the GRN screen, the AP invoice gets created automatically. Alternatively, you can also navigate directly to the AP invoice screen and create a record manually by clicking on the New Record button. After that, we simply need to select the organization, choose the appropriate target document type, and then provide the reference number along with the relevant dates. Next, select the vendor, followed by the payment term, payment method, and the applicable price list. Once all these fields are filled in, click on the Create Lines From button. From this window, you'll be able to select the relevant purchase order lines to populate the invoice. So this is how we can create an AP invoice manually from the AP invoice screen as well. Once you have verified all the information, you can complete the invoice by clicking on the Complete button. After the invoice is completed, the subsequent steps, such as payment processing or reconciliation, are managed by the finance department. Thank you for your attention and engagement throughout the session. With this clear understanding of the RFQ to purchase order process, you are now equipped to apply these insights confidently within your procurement workflow using Onfinity.